Jimbo's Garage.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the shop. Well, there's something I need to tell you guys that I have not shared on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and such. But on January the 3rd, I had full knee replacement surgery. So I've been convalescing for about 4.5 weeks now, and I've been limited to a walker for 3.5 weeks, and I've been on a cane for about a week now. And now I'm somewhat off of the cane, and I'm able to get around the shop gingerly. So I'm glad to be back out here in the shop getting some work done. It's been crazy being cooped up in the house for such a long time, but I'm just glad to be back out here. I got a small little project today we're going to work on. I've got 5 of these 90-degree brackets that we need to make. Now I've already made this one right here, so actually we really need to make just 4. Now there's not much to it. This is just 1.25" square tube, and it is on a 90-degree right here. We've got a couple holes on this end, a few holes on this end, and then some mounting tabs on this on the bottom right here, and then the end cap. The end cap right here has been filled. So pretty simple little project, but I got a couple of key points that I want to work with you on making 90-degree brackets. So let's go over those. Let's get started on today's video. Today's video is sponsored by King Metals. They've got all your fabrication needs in one location. From hinges to hardware, balusters to metal decor, brass to aluminum, and a whole lot more. You name it, they've got it. Check them out today at kingmetals.com. Now let's get back to today's video. All right, I'm over here at the Evolution, and we're getting ready to do some cuts. And this is the 1.25" square tube, and this is the 120 wall thickness. So the first thing I want to do is set it up in the saw, and I need to move my table here to 45 degrees. I want to cut a 45 on this, as that will be our starting point, and then I'll explain to you how I'm going to do the rest of this right here. Start by moving this back. Move this over to the 45 degree, and I'm just going to turn my saw a little bit of an angle here. All right, we're going to bring this back up in here. All right, I'm going to move it just past the edge of the blade right here, and I'm going to crank this down and cut this. This will be our starting point right here. All right, with that cut right there, now what we want to do is I need 4 pieces now at 22 inches. Actually not 22, because we're going to be putting an end cap on the end of this one right here. So I need 1/8 of an inch short, because the material I'm using is 1/8 inch flat strap. So we're going to make 4 cuts I need 4 pieces, I should say, at 21 7/8. So what I want to do, because I don't want to keep changing my table from 45 to 90, 45 to 90 to make all the cuts for the remainder 4 brackets, I'm just going to leave it at a 45, and knowing that I need basically 22 inches, I'm going to measure from this point here 24 inches, and then I'm going to cut another 45, and then again another 24, 45, another 24, 45, and once I get all my cuts that way, then I'll move the table back to 90 degrees and cut it at the 21 7/8. That way I'm not moving my table back and forth after every cut. So let's go ahead and get all these pieces cut. Again, 4 pieces at 21 7/8, and then I need 4 pieces at 32 1/8. So we'll get all these things cut, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I know that most of you guys might know that this is automatic, this is what you would do normally, but there are a few that probably don't, and I'm just trying to share some information that might make your job a little bit simpler. And I will admit, for the longest time, this is the way I did it. I made a 45, I changed the table back to 90 degrees, made my cut, changed it back the other way, and then until I realized there's got to be a better and easier and faster way of doing it, and that's what I ultimately came up with. Another thing you might see right there is that rest out at the very end. A very important thing to have if you have long stock is to have a support out at the very end. It might kick off the end if you don't have that. All right, there's the table adjusted back to the 90-degree position, and now I can go ahead and finish up all my cuts. All right, so we got our cut pieces over here at the welding table. So the next operation is to drill the holes in these pieces right here. On the short pieces, it's going to get 2 holes. One 3 inches up and then 12 inches on center. These shorter ones will take 2 holes. The longer ones are going to get 3. It'll be 3 inches up to the first hole. It'll be 12 inches to the next, and then another 12 to the third. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and set up a straight edge right here. I'm just going to drop a couple of my table dogs in here and a flat piece of bar, and then I'm going to take these bars and push them right up against this, and I know that everything is square. Okay. Now we're going to simply take a measurement. We're going to go 3 inches to the first one, and then we're going to add 3 more to that for the 12. That'll be 15. And then another 12 and 15 is 27. We've got our marks right there, so now I'm going to go ahead and just take the square, and I'm just going to go ahead and run a line all the way through there, through here, and through here. And then I'm going to go ahead and set the mill up. The head of the mill to the center of the vise, 1.25 inches, half of inch and a quarter is 5/8. I'll go ahead and set that up so I do not need to make that measurement in between. It'll be automatically centered in the vise when I put this 1.25 inches in there. So that takes care of the long ones. Let's go ahead, get the short ones done. Again, 3 inches and then 15. And then that'll make this between holes 12 inches on center. All right, there we go. Let's get over to the mill. We'll drill these out. All right, over to the KBC now. Got a couple parallels in here, and I've got a 3/8 drill bit in here. And so what I'm going to do is just going to set these things right in here. A couple different ways of doing it. For this, I'm just going to set it right in here like this. I'm going to tighten it down and make my adjustment right here. That's pretty much on the center right there. And then when I'm done drilling this, I'm going to flip this around and drill it again right here. The other way to do it, and I'll do that for example as well, since these holes are 12 inches, I'd probably just take this piece right here and just stagger it over a little bit, and then go ahead and drill this and take the power feed and slide the table over and come down and drill this one. But I found doing it this way is a little bit faster, and you know, I do have several holes to drill here, so I think that's probably the way I'm going to do it. All right, turning it on. I'm running about 700 RPMs right here. I'm going to give it a little splash of lubricant, and I'm going to go ahead and just drill these things through. That's one. Flip it around. Bring this thing through to about there. We'll check this. It's pretty good right where it is. All right. There's that right there. That's one. And we got 8 more to go. I'll show you the optional way to do that too. So sticking this in like this, running it about halfway between, something about there, and tighten it up. Pretty good there. Engage the power feed all the way over. You can see how much longer this is going to take. It takes a long time to do this. But that's just one way to do it. Another way too also is I can engage the power feed down and it can still drill these holes. But I found just manually doing it works just faster in this situation right here. All right, there's that. Bring it down, it's pretty close there. Don't have to be exact. All right, that's the 2 different ways of doing it. Like I said, I'm kind of in a hurry, so what I'm probably going to do is just go ahead and set the thing in here like this. Going to go ahead and drill this and flip it around. Some might argue that it might be wise to drill a pilot hole because this is a 3/8 drill bit, but this is only 1/8" thick material here. Seems to be drilling it with no problem at all, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. All right, so I'm back over here at the welding table and I've got all the holes drilled right here. There's one more thing we want to do is, and we want to put a chamfer on all these holes right here. After drilling, they create these burrs right here, on both sides, and sharp edges right here. And so we'll take a chamfering tool and do that. Now I could have done this on the mill by changing over and put a chamfering bit in the mill and then gone through and do all this. But I've got a dedicated drill with a chamfering tool on it that I use all the time. So it's going to be a lot easier and a lot faster. So that's what we're going to do. So let's do that. We got 40 holes to chamfer. So by using the drill with the chamfering tool on it, it'll just be a lot faster and easier. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so like I mentioned, you could do this in your drill press or mill by changing out and put a chamfering bit or tool in there. This worked for this situation right here. Like you see, I've got this dedicated drill that has a chamfering tool in it. I've had this, I drill a lot of holes, and every hole I drill, I use this to chamfer out. So this works much easier and much faster for me here. All right, over at the Porter band right here, and right now I'm just cutting the end caps for the short leg of the bracket. Now this is 1 1/4" by 1 1/4", and I just made that one cut, and I'm using that piece for the jig for the remainder 3. And this one's gonna get welded on the short cap. For the longer part, this is for the tabs. This is gonna be 5 1/4 inches long. I need to be 2 inches either side of the square tube. The square tube is 1 1/4", and then 2 inches either side is 5 1/4. Same process, just measured one, cut one, and using that blank to cut the remainder 3. All right, for the long ones, back over at the mill, and like I'd mentioned, I need to drill a couple of holes on either side. This is a mounting tab. They're going to be mounting this part to the floor, and inch and a quarter square tube, 2 inches either side. So I'm drilling 2 holes, 1 inch in from the end, and that's going to put it about in the center of the brackets right there. And that's what we're doing right here, drilling the rest of these out. And I only need these on the long tabs right here. All right, once I got everything drilled out there, over to the Deburring, and I'm just slightly rounding the outer edges here on the tabs, and then trimming up the from the cuts, just softening up the edges there for the cuts. Got all those done, and it's time to get these welded on. All right. 1.5 inch square tube, cap on the end. First mistake right here. Tack and weld it all the way through, and that instantly drew that cap end piece out. I couldn't straighten it back up. I'll come back to that later. The right way to do it is what you see right here. It's been a while since I've done this, a little rusty. You bring it in, hold it in place, one quick tack there, flip it around the other side, quick tack there, and then that keeps everything nice and straight. Then you can go ahead and weld everything out. Been a while since I've been in the shop. I forget the little tricks that I do here, but it doesn't take long to remind me I made a mistake. All right, so those 3 there, and here I'm bringing back to the other one here. I can't straighten it, no worries. I just got my cutoff saw right here, and I'll just cut this thing off and then remount it back. Do it the right way this time. Hold it square, one tack, and just like that, we're back in business, nice and squared up. And then for the longer end of the bracket, here's the tabs I'm welding on. I'm just using a piece of 2-inch scrap right there to use that as a template to hold them in place. 2 inches from the end. And again, once everything is in position, tack, flip it over, tack before it draws open, and then you can go ahead and weld these out. And sometimes when you weld these out like this, you're going to get the ends of those tabs to draw in. Just a little hammer is all you need, and that's going to straighten things out. Last one right here, fairly quick, fairly simple, and we got these all done. Okay, so we got all of our brackets welded and ground down, cleaned up, and ready for assembly right here. Now, one of the major mistakes that people make, and I've done this is how I know, is when I'm making a bracket, a 90-degree bracket, I'm assuming that I'm going to set this on my surface, whether it be a welding table or flat surface or whatever it is, and I'm going to bring these 2 angles together. I'm going to get my square, I'm going to square them up, clamp it down, and I'm going to go ahead and weld these up. That is the first mistake. When you introduce heat to this intersection right here, the first thing that's going to happen is the side's going to want to close up. And it could close up as much as 1/4 inch depending on the size of bracket that you have. In this case, this bracket's 22 inches long by 32 inches. I'm assuming that this is going to close as much as 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fixture this thing down, get square. I'm going to draw a line on the square side right here, and then I'm going to open this up maybe 3/16 to 1/4 inch, clamp it down, weld it, unclamp it, weld it all the way around, and by the time that's done, this is going to close right down to a perfect 90 degrees. So let me go ahead, bring in a different angle, we'll set this thing up, and we'll get these brackets welded out. All right, so I first set it up right here, got everything clamped in and nice and square, and then once I got that done, you can see this is the line that I drew down. And I opened the first one up here about 3/16 of an inch. I knew I was going to get close with that, but I wanted to check and be sure that that's where it's going to be. So I'm just starting with this one right here. I'm going to weld this all the way around, and then I'm going to grind these welds down. Ultimately, that's the way it's going to finish out with the welds nice and ground down right here. So I'm doing that right here. I'm going to check this one before I get into the rest of them and see how we did. All right, so I'm trying to get to a position to show you guys how square this is, and I hit this really close. The edge of my welding table is square, and I've got this perfectly squared, the long leg squared to my edge of the welding table. And here's a 24-inch framing square. So I'm going to butt that right up against this edge and then this edge right here. And you can see that that is almost perfectly square. And so that's what I'm talking about right there. Just remember, you know, when you're making a 90-degree bracket or angle of some sort, you just got to remember to open this up. And so when you weld it closed, it's going to close down to that 90 degrees. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot shorter and it's not going to be right. All right, let's get these other ones finished up. All right, so for the remainder 3, since I was about a 1/16 of an inch off, I really need to open this up to about a 1/4 of an inch, not 3/16. And that's what I did for the remainder 3 right here, and that seemed to be just right. They were right on the money after that. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and weld the rest of these out, put them together. And for those of you who are wondering, I'm operating off of the HTP ProPulse 220 MTS. I'm running 35 thousandths wire, and my shielding gas is 90-10, 90% argon, 10% CO2. And every machine is different, but on this application right here with this 8-inch thick material, I'm running about 275 inches a minute. And that varies between different machines, but for what I'm using, this worked out the best for me. All right, with them all welded out, then it's just to go ahead now and time to grind everything nice and smooth. You know, I like to do this with mostly everything I do. I've never had any issues with the welds coming apart. Even though this is going to be inside of a wall, I still like everything nice and clean. That's just the way I am. So we got all the grinding done, and I'm pretty pleased the way this turned out, and these brackets are complete. All right, well, this project is done. We're going to get this back to the customer so they can get them installed. Just remember, when you guys are making 90-degree brackets, to open up that angle before you weld it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.
See you next time on Jimbo's Garage.